My name is Melody Ellison. I am the founder of the Little Women Book Club on Facebook. I did not think that that would be so popular, but it's incredibly popular now, especially. We got a whole lot of new members. When I'm not posting there or commenting there or just being an admin in general, I am a writer and an actor. I have a book that's called Rachel and the Mighty Arm That Built Egypt. You can find it on Amazon. I'm right now in the middle of rehearsals for Little Mermaid. That's my general life.
Is it Disney Little Mermaid?
Yes.
Yay.
Yes, I play Chef Louis, the psychotic French chef.
That's great.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I know that you've done some of your own research on Louisa May Alcott. Like, you know a lot about her as well.
Yeah, I know more than the average Little Women fan, but I certainly don't know anything compared to yourself. I'm still in the book club. I'm like, you guys have to check out this podcast. It's if you will learn something. Even if you think you know a lot, you are going to learn something from it.
Oh, thanks. I do my best.
I always like to know the whys of things, and that's pretty much how I ended up learning more about Louisa May Alcott than like the average person, is because, I'm like, why did she make this choice? And it's like a lot of the stuff you pointed out, a lot of it comes down to her own upbringing and her exposure to, Germanic type writings, and there's a lot there.
That's really the way I started. Like, I wanted to know the reasons why there are these choices in the book. What are the stories behind them? We are going to dissect the chapter 35 of Little Woman called Heartache.
I printed out a chapter so that I could write on it if I wanted to. But yes, I have the chapter ready to read.
Awesome. Would you like to start?
Sure. Okay, so Little Women, Part 2, Chapter 35, Heartache. Whatever his motive might have been, Laurie studied to some purpose that year, for he graduated with honor and gave the Latin oration with the grace of a Phillips and the eloquence of a Demosthenes, so his friends said. They were all there, his grandfather oh so proud, Mr. and Mrs. March, John and Meg, Joe and Beth, and all exulted over him with the sincere admiration which boys make light of at the time, but fail to win from the world by any after triumphs.
So we have Laurie graduating, and he's doing pretty good.
Yes, he did really well. It kind of makes me sad sometimes when I look at this because to realize that he didn't do it for himself, for the purpose of knowledge. He did it for Joe and for his grandfather. Yeah, it's like you're happy for him that he obviously has learned a lot, because he wouldn't have been graduated with honors if he hadn't been able to retain information. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, I guess as somebody who has a great love of learning, it makes me sad to think that somebody wouldn't learn just for the sake of wanting to learn, that they would be doing it for someone else.
Yeah, I just rewatched the 1978 version, and there's that moment he's in the billiard hall, and the grandfather is like, why you are not in school? And he's like, skipping school there. He still manages to study at some point, I think.
Yes. And in I think it was even maybe in this chapter that it talks about how he had gave up billiards for Joe, and I think it's one of those subtext things where it's like, because it's not like talked about a lot in the book, like, oh, he's so into billiards or he's into these things that are like maybe not good for his character, because at the time billiards would have been considered like a low type of thing to be involved with. It's a thing like she couldn't make him like an alcoholic or something that was going to be really bad, So she gave him billiards, and it's still like his fault.
One of the earliest chapter in part 2, when Laurie is in college, it's mentioned that he smokes, drinks, plays pool, and flirts with girls. Something like that. And then he always gets out of trouble when he gets into fights, and all the teachers like him, even though he's not always the most responsible student, because he's so charming. It's interesting. Laurie is an interesting character.
Yes.
I've got to stay for this confounded supper, but I shall be home early tomorrow. You'll come and meet me as usual, girls, Laurie said, as he put the sisters into the carriage after the joys of the day were over. He said girls, but he meant Joe.
Hello, friends. It is Niina from the Little Woman podcast. Just to let you all know that the Little Woman podcast episode transcripts are now available as books. You can find them as paperbacks and ebooks. They are wonderful reading for all the fans of Louisa May Alcott. You can find all the links from the description. And now, back to the show.
For she was the only one who kept up the old custom. She had not the heart to refuse her splendid, successful boy anything and answered warmly, "I'll come, Teddy, rain or shine, and march before you, playing Hail the Conquering Hero Comes on a Jew's harp." Laurie thanked her with a look that made her think, in a sudden panic, "Oh dear me, I know he'll say something, and then what shall I do?" Jo knows what's going to happen.
She does. She does know. And I mean, isn't at this point she's already been avoiding him?
She's been to the other side of the country, avoiding him.
Yeah. I think that's one of those things too that I feel like a lot in Little Women, something that Louisa May Alcott, it's totally right, is your state of mind at different ages. Aren't they in their early 20s at this point or late teens?
Early 20s, I think.
And so they're at that age where maybe they wouldn't normally just yet just say their mind. They're weaving around each other, doing a dance of like, oh, I feel this way, versus if they were 10 years older, she, instead of running away, she would have already told him, hey, I'm not interested in you like that.
I don't think I've thought about that, but yeah, I can see
And
that.
And it's just like how, we've talked about before about how Laurie's love for Jo is an immature love. And again, it totally fits the age that he's at. It's not like that's who he is completely as a person, because by the time he asks Amy to marry him, he's not the same person, but because he's grown up some. And the fact that Louisa May Alcott can so exactly portray the inner workings of these people to fit the real ages they are. That's one of those things I think that is a very understated thing about her as a writer, is she really does capture the way we think when we're at these different ages.
Yeah, I think the transcendentalists, they had this thing. Louisa was encouraged to write her inner thoughts all the time when she was younger. Like she had to collect all her thoughts and memories. Well, she didn't have to do that, but she was encouraged to do it. Then you learn to know about yourself. And that was part of their fate. I think you can see a lot of that in Little Woman because you can read so much about the characters' inner worlds.
Yes, I agree. Evening meditation and morning work somewhat allayed her fears. And having decided that she wouldn't be vain enough to think people were going to propose when she had given them every reason to know that her answer would be, she set forth at the appointed time, hoping Teddy wouldn't do anything to make her hurt his poor feelings. A call at Meg's and a refreshing sniff and sip at the Daisy and Demijohn still further fortified her for the tete-a-tete. But when she saw a stalwart figure looming in the distance, she had a strong desire to turn about and run away.
Despite that, she had given them every reason to know what her answer would be. That really got into me.
Yeah.
She has given him multiple reasons that she's not into him.
I think a lot of us have been in those situations in life, though, right? With young men, the young man who, it doesn't matter how many times you say, "Hey, this is not how I see you," or "This is not going to work." I mean, nowadays it's usually about because a movie from the 80s or something told him that if he just keeps trying, it'll work. But in Laurie's time, it probably had been reading romantic poetry or some other romantic writings that taught him that he was like going to win if he just kept at it, because obviously he just had to play the part of the romantic lead and then she would love him.
Yeah, that is very problematic these days.
Yes.
I think we talked about this earlier, how there are so many examples in the media about the guys who behave like this.
Yes, like I know we talked about it with like The Notebook. The Notebook, it always makes me crazy when people are like, it's such a romantic movie, I haven't read the book, I've only seen the movie. But, the scene where he's hanging off the Ferris wheel and like threatening to kill himself essentially if she won't go on a date with him, that is not romantic. That is abuse. You know, that's manipulation. But I think there's a lot of, it sounds like even all the way back then, a lot of men who think that that is a romantic gesture when really all it is manipulation.
I read the notebook, but it was maybe 15 years ago. I don't think that scene was in it. Maybe it was all in the film. But I need to check that out. It's really troublesome in the movie. And the way Edward stalks Bella in Twilight.
Yes. You know, and the sad thing is like there we do buy into this stuff because I see all the problematic things with Twilight, that I still like Twilight. I still like the books. I still like the movies. But I wouldn't want an Edward. You know, I wouldn't want personally. I enjoy the films, but it's really not a good message.
Yeah, I've only seen the first Twilight film, but I can see why a lot of young fans would like that. I can see why a lot of young readers would like that in Laurie. Yes, you don't have that experience yourself. If you would all imagine some guy saying that they are going to hurt themselves if we don't go out with them, nobody's going to think that's romantic or sweet. Yeah. I kind of like the scene where she goes to see Daisy and Demi-John. Just shows once again that Jo really wants a family to herself.
You know, I mean, think about how she creates her large family with Plumfield. I feel like it's one of those examples too, how in some of the more modern explorations of Little Women, people try to make her like just this like career woman and all of that, you know, and it's like there's nothing that was more important to Jo than her family. Her writing was secondary next to her family. It's an odd thing when people try to present her as this just career driven, and it's like she's not career driven, she's driven by family and art. It's her writing is her art.
I think it's the chapter All Alone where the narrator says that she has sacrificed hopes of love and chances for her own family, for her career and other things, her health. She's not happy. That's really sad.
You look at the other books, I mean, clearly having a family ended up being a way more important thing to her than her writing. We're not quite there yet in this chapter, but there was something that really struck me while I was reading the chapter this time. And it was the kind of the structure of Laurie and Jo's relationship reminded me of something. And I'm like, what does this remind me of? What does this remind me of? And then it hit me. It reminds me of Peter Pan and Wendy.
You know, I was thinking about that earlier today, that the way Jo collects these boys around her, she's like Wendy and the Lost Boys.
Her Lost Boys, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, you know, with the way she interacts with Laurie in this chapter, like when she, you know, she's like cradling him practically and like touching his hair. And it makes me think of this mother type figure, but it's not a real mother. It's this child pretending to be a mother to this boy who pretends to basically be a man. And so that made me think, this is like Peter Pan and Wendy. And of course, Peter Pan, it was first a play and then it became a novel, but it wasn't written until the beginning of the 1900s. So it's like 40 years after Little Women, basically. And so then I started thinking, I wonder if J.M. Barrie was influenced by Louisa May Alcott at all, because between the relationship that Laurie and Jo have to the next book where Jo has this group of these boys. So I did a search, and what I found when I did a Google search was someone had actually written their thesis on a similar idea. The thesis was written by someone named Leah Marie Kirkpatrick, and it was titled Hidden Kisses, Walled Gardens, and Angelkinder, a story of the Victorian and Edwardian conceptions of motherhood and childhood in Little Women, The Secret Garden, and Peter Pan. So if someone else has had some similar ideas like this, I'm like, I must be on to something. Now, I only just found this today, so I have not read it because it is 148 pages long, right? It's a thesis, but I thought, how interesting, you know, because it seems like her general, the main point of it is this idea, you know, in this era, make both the idea of childhood and motherhood kind of like an angelic sort of situation. Like you become saint-like as a mother, you are an angel as a child. This kind of celebration of innocence within both of these ideas. But I don't know. I think it's something to look at more, like the idea that in a way, Laurie and Joe are kind of a Peter and Wendy situation.
That's super interesting. I was talking in an earlier episode with somebody who said that when Joe takes care of Beth, she almost has a maternal relationship to Beth, like she's almost Beth's secondary mother as well.
Yes.
And then I was thinking, like what you just said, Laurie, he is like Peter Pan because Peter Pan doesn't want to grow up. In Peter Pan, Wendy, even though she likes the idea of being a child, she also wants to grow up. She wants to know what it's like to be an adult. And I think they even refer adulthood as another adventure.